Well, this is episode 10. Shouldn't that be a milestone? Shouldn't we be doing something?
It should. We should maybe have like a special graphic that says 10th episode.
10th episode.
It's like it feels like we've been doing this for a while, but then again it's like, wow, it's only 10.
It's 2 months, 1 week.
Man. Yeah. Well, I guess because we're doing, if we did this every day, then it would feel like a lot less.
Yeah. But it is a milestone, but it also is a bit bittersweet because of the things that are happening over the weekend, right? With Iran formally attacking Israel.
Yeah.
Which was
it was crazy. I was like, I didn't even know. The only way I knew was because I was like, wow, why is crypto down so much?
Ever since this crisis in Israel had started, there was always concerns about Iran getting involved because apparently this is what's told by the U.S. intelligence, is they fund and back Hamas. And so there was always concern that Iran would retaliate against Israel for doing what they're doing in Gaza. So it's finally happened, and apparently they sent hundreds of drones from Iran over to Israel, as well as cruiser missiles. What I was reading though is that these drones that they send take hours and hours to get to Israel from Iran, and so there's just a lot of preparation that Israel is able to do. Jordan closed their airspace, which is kind of in the middle, and yeah, it's scary because you also see other headlines talking about World War III. That's always been a thing ever since Russia invaded Ukraine. It's like, is there going to be World War III? And now that Iran, just all this war news is not fun to hear.
No.
So thinking about everyone out there that's going on, that's going through these wars and these conflicts in Asia and the Middle East, but how it affected, like you said, crypto dropped once this news came out. And so Bitcoin was down about 8% on Saturday. Digital coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the other altcoins dropped a ton over the weekend. Obviously, the altcoins dropped more than Bitcoin. I think I saw as much as 20 to 30% on some altcoins. And then by Sunday morning, it stabilized a bit. So I saw Ethereum was stabilized this morning around 3,000. Bitcoin stabilized around 64, 65. But yeah, huge pullback due to this. And I don't think it's going to have as much of an effect on the stock market tomorrow, but I think it will have an effect just because, the drop in crypto was reactionary, right, to the news.
Yeah.
Stocks weren't trading, obviously, and so they couldn't have that same reaction. But I think the overall market tomorrow will be down a bit.
When you texted me, like it was like down. Everything was down like almost like 20% or whatever 15 for like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I was like, yeah, this proves my point. It's already like not it right. They're already kind of independent, yet they react the same way to world issues, right? And it's just like, people say a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, but when everybody's perception of Bitcoin is pegged to like the US dollar as an example, then it doesn't meet the dream. You know what I mean? At least a dollar. I know a dollar is a dollar, right? So I can go out to my local 7-Eleven and still pick up a Slurpee, and it's still going to be, whatever, $3, $4, $5, right? Versus if it was priced in Bitcoin, oh no, it's 0.00001 instead of 0.00015.
Actually, though, when you buy things with crypto, though, they typically tell you how much do you want to spend in dollars of your crypto.
Right. See, right? That's my other point.
Yeah.
It's like then what's the use case? But anyways, so yeah, the drops are pretty significant, as you said, mostly reactionary.
Yeah, it's too volatile.
Yeah.
It's very
I was like,
volatile right now.
do I buy this knife down, or I guess I lived on the more fearful side. I was like, oh, I should have, like, I think when we were texting, it was like right when everything was hitting their lows. Now that,
Yeah.
I look back at it. But no.
This drop may go down a little bit more. Probably go
Mm-hmm.
down a bit more. I don't know. That's what crypto usually does. I am in belief that Bitcoin will get to $100,000. I am in belief that Ethereum will get to $10,000 eventually.
Mm-hmm. Like Rivian was another one. It was hitting all-time lows.
Rivian is juicy right now.
I was like, man, it's like, okay, I'm glad I sold. It's like I'm glad I sold when we talked about it. Whatever it was, like, that was episode 6, so like 4 weeks ago. I'm glad I sold that small tranche I bought for profit, but
Mm-hmm.
then I filled it back in when it dropped again to that same $10 ish level. Um, but now it's down down to all time lows. I
$10 though,
picked
it's
up a
good.
little bit. I picked up a little bit more just to fill out. I like round numbers in the shares I own.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I thought I did that because I was when you were talking about your covered puts. I was like, I should really be selling covered calls against some of these positions just to at least offset some of the losses, right? So if anybody doesn't know, like covered call means you sell a call against the shares you own, and so you gain a little bit of the premium from the calls you sell, right? So 100 shares of Rivian, I can sell one call. And so if anybody decides to call that option away, then I just lose my 100 shares. I'm thinking, there's actually no downside, because even if your calls get taken away, you could just go back out and buy them. You might lose a little bit, but it's still worth it. Well, if the premiums are
Yeah.
enough, but we'll see.
That's the only downside. I mean, typically you want to sell covered calls when the stock is high,
Yeah.
because the only downside is, say Rivian doubles in the next
Yeah.
month, because
Yeah.
usually you want to sell options about a month out, but
Yeah.
say it doubles in a month, which could happen. Um,
It could.
you're typically going to sell a covered call for 2 or 3 strike prices away,
Yeah.
which is going to be at where Rivian is now, is probably going to be around $10.
Yeah.
Then you lose that
Yeah.
100% gain theoretically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Theoretically. Yeah.
So when it's low
Um,
like this, when it's at a low, you usually want to sell a cash secured put, which is a bit
yeah.
better.
Yeah.
But that's the downside, and if you're willing to lose that theoretical upside,
Yeah. Yeah.
then that's okay. You can do it.
Yeah. But
Uh,
anyways, we'll see. So yeah, so my EV holdings are not doing too hot right now. So
yeah, I sold those. Remember, I told you we were talking about how I bought call options and I was going to wait 6 months. I actually sold
mm-hmm.
them a couple weeks ago.
Mm,
Wanted to keep the profit, and then I saw the market kind of starting to trend down a bit, or
yeah.
I saw it starting to, the S&P starting to pause.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rivian did announce a acquisition. Let's see, they announced that they're acquiring a better route planner to enable seamless route planning experience. How much did they acquire it for?
Yeah.
Hmm, doesn't say.
It feels like I mean, it's like, okay, I understand why they might think they need it, but I think the question in my mind, well, like the best free, well, I mean, they're not free, but like, right, Android Auto Maps or Apple Maps seems like the
CarPlay.
obvious choices. Yeah. Weird acquisition. I can see why it went down on that. It's hopes that Apple would want to buy them.
It's got me thinking too over the week when I heard this news is Tesla. I feel still has a strong software play. I mean, their first foray
Mm.
into Tesla being an operating system or of EVs for example,
Mm-hmm.
is the supercharger
Mm-hmm.
network, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
cars are adopting Tesla's supercharging as a standard. Who knows? Like Tesla's Tesla's infotainment system is pretty good in my mind, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing that they could potentially lease out to other cars.
Yeah.
As I crossed over into from my 30s and the 40s, I really
Yeah.
started. I don't know, something triggered. I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
the middle age, right? Where I just really started thinking more about how are the things I'm doing now going to set me up in the future better? And I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
retirement. Um,
Yes. That's right. It is retirement.
and also, especially with like investing and whatnot,
Yeah.
they talk about when you're younger, you're more risky. When you're older, you're more
Mm-hmm.
conservative. And
Yeah.
it's true, all those things just came out like once I eclipsed my
Yeah.
30s into my 40s. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar thoughts, but it's more of um how it's like still have to be risky because I just don't have enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I mean, it's like I've been reading a lot of these articles. Like, how much should you have saved up by the time you're like in your mid 40s and mid 50s? There was like an article this week. I forget. Maybe it was on CNBC, but they did a survey of people and asking how much do you think you need in order to retire. And apparently, over the past year or two, it's doubled. So previously, people were saying they only need about 900,000 in order to be able to retire like comfortably. But in this most recent survey they did, it was like 1.5 million is what
Yeah.
most people think that they need to in order to retire. And like, man, so screwed.
It's all
And
lifestyle too, though. You're
yeah,
you're having these thoughts based off on your lifestyle today.
right,
But the idea is during retirement, your lifestyle changes. You don't have, kid that you're
right,
spending for a lot and
yeah.
whatnot.
Does it really reduce that much if you think about it, right? Even if you're retired, you would still want to travel. You'd still want to eat out. I don't. At least I don't see myself significantly doing anything different.
Yeah. Well,
Um.
and so that's the thing. Like, if you
Yeah.
don't, then you need more.
But, yeah. Then I'm screwed.
Yeah.
So.
So I've been actually trying to practice more of that. I watched a lot of,
Mm,
YouTube videos of people talking about minimalism and
yeah.
how to not spend stuff. I don't know. I guess also because I'm, unemployed. I'm trying to
Yeah.
like think about all these
Yeah.
things a bit more consciously. Whereas when you have a steady paycheck, you just kind of
Yeah.
spend.
Yeah.
I ate pho the
Um.
other day and it was $24.
For what?
Pho, a large pho,
Oh.
and a Thai iced tea.
Wow. Holy crap.
I'm like,
Well, I mean, I say that, but like, okay, that sounds pretty normal to me here in SF. Like, we could go out for like dim sum. We did dim sum like the other week, and it was like $100
yeah,
for us
and
too. And I was like, wow,
it's
that's like, what
inflation.
is going on?
Another reason why crypto is declining as well as the stock market is because of inflation. So the
Hmm.
CPI numbers came out last week. It was higher than expected.
Hmm.
And so the last few months here, it's been flat. And this month and this last month, it actually rose a little bit. So that's concerning, right?
Yeah.
But still, the highest costs are food and shelter. And I think energy is starting to rise as well. But the reason why I
Yeah.
brought up the fuzz because I still remember not this is probably right before COVID, obviously, since inflation
Hmm.
we have our inflation woes due to the COVID stuff. I remember pho being like $12.
You're right.
Now it's around 17, $18 for one
Yeah. No.
large basic pho.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Like,
gone up like almost 100%. It's kind of insane.
yeah, and so yes, the other thing I heard related to what we're talking about right now is there was a survey that went out of people who felt that they would be able to buy a home or and
Mhm.
it was like 49% of adults now
Yeah.
don't feel like they're going to be able to buy a home, afford a home in the next
Yeah.
3 to 5 years. And that's
Yeah.
up from 16% a few years ago when the survey was
Yeah.
taken again.
Yeah.
And this is because of the rates right now
Yeah.
that are high. It's because of the inventory, and it's because of housing prices that
Yeah.
went up 30 to 50% during COVID.
Oh, I would say even more in some markets. Like,
Yeah.
well, in the markets where I lived, it was like, wow, it's like things are like almost doubled in like where it would normally take a decade or so for them to do that, right? They kind of like gained it all in like a couple of years, which
Yeah.
is
And so you brought up a
great.
story around this, right? Something that you were
Yeah,
hearing about.
yeah, only because like this has also been like a constant trending theme on like TikTok about how Gen Z is not able to, to have the same dreams that say millennials and boomers had of owning a home, having a stable job, all these things that either one side takes for granted or the other side feels like they have been like screwed over basically, right? But yeah, so a lot of articles talk about one of the key things of housing prices increasing is just low inventory. And it's so weird because a lot of these articles anchor on, oh, and I've seen like Redfin publishes articles like these quite often too, of one trend or one theme is that boomers are staying in their homes longer and not selling them, and that's one reason why um, there's a low shortage of housing available. The second one is people who locked in those ultra low rates over COVID are also choosing to stay in their homes longer. But what nobody talks about is a large proportion of single family homes are actually owned by corporations.
Yeah.
And so that's what I don't get. Because like they're like the solve is boomers and these people who bought their homes with low rates should need to sell their homes. And like, how does that actually solve the fundamental problem? If they sell their homes, that means they need to find new homes to buy, right? And it's just like a weird thing where nobody talks about, well, these corporations own millions of homes and they definitely are only renting them, right? They're not living in these millions of homes.
Even
And
private
so it's like,
equity owns a ton of homes,
yeah, even
like
private
BlackRock.
equity owns, right? Yeah. And so like there's these millions of homes that are actually being forcefully not sold because these companies are renting them out and they're increasing rents. Also, if anybody rents, right, you'll know it's like, wow, the renting is also like, it's just like gone up incredibly. Um, but it's like, yeah, why isn't there some type of law or something? Like, why isn't that issue addressed? Of like, corporations shouldn't be allowed to own millions and millions of single family homes. And if they do, maybe they should be like taxed super heavily on it,
Yeah.
right? Because that's to me that's like the fundamental issue is like you have a like all these homes are just being rented out. People can't buy them. And nobody talks about it, which is it's like the weirdest thing. Like I've never really seen anybody talk about like, well, why are we allowing these companies to buy these millions of homes when all I hear about are like there's like millions of home shortfall on the market,
I agree.
and it's just like it's the strangest thing, and I haven't found an answer of why either.
Yeah. I do think the government needs to do something about it. It's a problem, and it manifested a ton during this COVID spike.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Bellevue, we were constantly seeing homes. I think at the peak in 2021, we were constantly seeing homes list and then sell for 50 to 60% higher than that they were listed for, which has
Right.
caused an overall increase in prices here. And in 2023, it kind of stabilized. You're seeing houses stay on the market longer, sell
Mm-hmm.
for their actual listing price. But in the last 2 months, we're starting to see that behavior again.
Mm, yeah.
To your point, yeah, it was a lot of corporate investors or private equity. There's a lot of Asian money too, like Chinese and
Mm-hmm.
Korean.
Yep.
And basically, what they do is these. The other problem is they buy these properties as investments.
Right.
A lot of them do rent them out, but a lot of them also just leave them there.
sit there.
Able to
Yeah.
park their money in the house because
Yeah.
in 10 years, it's going to
Right.
appreciate, right?
Yeah.
And so yes, that makes it so the American dreamer who wants to own a house
Yeah.
cannot own a house, or at least cannot
Right.
own a house in where they want to live,
Yeah.
and it's pitiful. So I agree with you. I do think the government should do something about it, regulate it more.
Yeah.
One thing that's related is we were looking for some property in Austin when we lived there. We were looking for like a condo
Mm-hmm.
to buy out and rent out.
Hmm.
But if you buy a condo, there's a percentage of condos that are reserved for investors, such as like 10% of the condos.
Right.
The other 90% are you need to live in them full
Yeah.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a way that these property management companies and these apartment complexes can regulate, right? And so I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like something like that is needed in the
Mm-hmm.
overall home real estate market that's
Yeah.
regulated by the government.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's just annoying. Like I see these stories come up and like, yeah, there's a reason I can't buy a house. It's because like BlackRock owns
Yeah.
millions of them. And the thing is that it's not necessarily in the big cities either. Like a lot of properties they buy are out in like middle America. And so that doesn't help. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of the problems are. Um,
And so you have these people who locked in that 2.5% interest rate
mm-hmm.
at the low. Even before COVID, it was at 4%, I think. So you
Right.
have a lot of people with 4% or under. And right now it's at about 6 to 7%.
Yeah. It's like why would you sell? You would end up you right, you'd sell to end up buying a lesser house than you
Yeah.
would if you kept, right? And so it's yeah, it's just weird. It's like don't blame the normal everyday person.
Well, yeah. And so with the CPI print last week, now the expectation is that the Fed can't cut rates
Right.
this year. I mean, there's before the CPI print, there was an expectation of 2 to 3 rate cuts this year.
Mm-hmm.
Now that
Yeah.
it's trended upwards for 1 month and it's only 1 month's
Yeah.
worth of data,
Yeah.
now there's fear that they're only going to be able to cut rates once or maybe not even at all this year. And
Yeah.
so these interest rates are going to stay elevated for another year,
Right.
which is not going to help the problem. And
Yeah.
so I would expect that we won't even see 4% interest rates and mortgages for another year and a half to 2 years, which is crazy to think about.
I know. One of the only upsides is I have most of my money now in high yield savings accounts.
Yeah. Well, I guess
Pretty
another thing
easy.
to think through too is another good investment. This is not financial advice. None of it, anything we
Oh
said
yes,
on
yeah.
this
We should as
podcast
in
is not
not
financial
financial
advice.
advice. Yeah.
This is just what we do in our entertainment
Right.
purposes for you. But I think the other place I'm putting my money now is REITs, real estate
Oh
ETFs.
really?
They're declining
Mm-hmm.
because of what's going on, but
Yeah.
eventually, once rates start to come down and real estate starts to get a bit better, it'll start to pop up. So
Mm.
this is just buying the lows on
On these
these
REITs.
REITs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any particular ticker? I'm curious now. Let me look.
I just did the Vanguard one.
Oh, okay. I thought you were more of the actual corporations we were just talking about.
No, so my portfolio strategy now is I have I'm mostly cash actually. I'm like 80% in high yield savings because
Yeah.
it's so
Same.
the
Yeah.
yield is high, right? 5% is
Yeah.
what I get at M1 Finance. That's what I use.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like 15, maybe 10% in crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, like that math is wrong. I'm about 70% cash
Uh-huh.
in high yield savings and like 5 to 10% in crypto. And then the remaining is in
Mm-hmm.
stocks. It's like my individual stock convictions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's move over to our last story here related to Tesla. We love talking about Tesla, as you know, from our last popular
Uh-huh.
video that's been doing pretty well. But
Yeah.
two things with Tesla. One is you can subscribe to full self-driving, and it used to be $299, but last
Uh-huh.
week Tesla, Elon, they reduced it to $99 a month. So if you want
Uh-huh.
to enable full self-driving for a month, you just need to pay $99 now
Mm-hmm.
versus $299. And so the last episode we talked about how much they're pushing full self-driving a lot because it is a high margin item. It's technically a service. It's not automobile sales. And so if they can start to push this more, it'll do two things that are good. One is Tesla can increase their margins overall, which is good for their business viability and their stock price. And two, it'll get more cars into the Tesla neural network to train the self-driving technology better. So we'll see how it goes. I'm interested to see Tesla's earnings. I actually think Tesla's going to surprise with their earnings, even though the deliveries were down. But we'll see.
Yeah, when I saw this news, I was thinking that that's exactly what they were trying to do is get more data to train, uh, pending the robotaxi announcement that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
But
And the second story was Elon Musk and Brazil government clashing last week. A Brazil Supreme Court justice had sent an order to X
mm-hmm.
to deactivate a number of government and media journalists'
Mm-hmm.
X accounts
Mm-hmm.
to basically censor and get them off the platform. I was
Yeah.
reading it, and Brazil makes up 18% of X's user base. So it's not a
Wow, that's a
small user
lot.
base.
Yeah.
And basically, Elon said "f you," and he posted on X his thoughts on free speech
Mm-hmm.
and that he's not going to deactivate these accounts. He's going to keep these accounts
Yeah.
live because
Yeah.
free speech, and he's against censorship. It's
Funny
yeah,
hearing that from him.
and now it's trickling up to the U.S. government because the House of Representatives are starting to get involved into understanding what's going on here.
Hmm. Interesting. Par for the course for Elon. Like he doesn't really like people telling him what to do,
Yeah.
and that's probably the worst approach the Brazilian government could have taken. But, yeah, Elon does as Elon wills. So
Yeah,
not unexpected.
that guy's a monster. He just for some reason he has so much time. Well, he has the same amount of time as all of us, but he has so much time. He just gets involved in so many things.
Yeah, I do find it quite amazing, like
Yeah,
how he's able to put so much time into posting on Twitter. It's like I barely have time just to read up and catch up on stuff for us to talk about every week.
and they're different. Like all the things he's involved in, they're in different contexts too.
Yeah,
Switching
yeah,
from SpaceX to X to Tesla to his other things, right?
yeah. But I think a lot of people have called that as one of the reasons why Tesla is doing so poorly, right?
Yeah,
Is because he isn't focused on it like he was, previously. So maybe we're kind of seeing that impact now. But
yeah, and I think
anyways, if I had that much money, I'd probably wouldn't carry it there, right?
yeah, I
Just
think the
do what I want.
pendulum will start. One thing I do know about what I have observed about Elon Musk is he's also pretty good at swinging the pendulum to where he needs to focus. So
Yeah.
as you can see in the last month or two here, he's been getting more involved in Tesla, particularly with this FSD push.
Wait, what's the price reduction on that again? It was from 2 something to 99 or
It was,
89?
it was from $299 to $99, so $100 reduction.
$100 reduction. And so you think more people will sign up? I guess because you were saying like you think earnings will be a beat. Are you saying that because you think more people will sign up for FSD than the lost revenue on people
Yeah. Well, I
who are
think that's
current
the long play.
subscribers?
I mean, that is the longer play. I don't
Hmm.
know if it's going to have impact in Q1,
Yeah.
but that is the longer play, I think, is
Hmm.
services. I mean, if you look at their earnings the last few quarters, services has been rising already
Hmm.
in terms of a total percentage of revenue, but we'll see.
Maybe I'll buy a call. We'll see.
Uh, I wouldn't put my
You
money
willing?
there.
You willing to bet a call on it?
I already have enough in Tesla. Actually, though, that's not a bad idea because I think it will rise up towards earnings,
Yeah.
but then it'll be a buy the rumor, sell the news type event.
They're right up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about stocks, I'm just gonna call it Reddit's price right now is at 42.10. It's almost at it's below its opening IPO now.
Yeah.
Just referencing back to our previous episode where we were gonna make our calls on Reddit.
All right. Well, good episode 10.
Yep.
And I need to go deal with my daughter now. She was kind of grumpy, wanting to eat breakfast.
Hungry child is not a good child.
I know. Once again, please subscribe, follow, listen to us on the podcast or on YouTube, and leave comments because we want to hear your feedback on how to improve and what you want to hear.
Yeah. All right. See you next week.